Jimmy K here, Metal Voice. Look at this. The Metal Voice shirts are now on sale. Just go to the video description to find out on how you can purchase one. Metal!
Bonjour.
Bonjour, bonjour.
Hello.
All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Metal Voice. Drummer, of course, of Dream Theater, Mike Portnoy.
How you doing?
Are we dreaming? Are we dreaming?
You are not. It is me, and you are here, and we are not dreaming.
We're not dreaming. Good news. The album was released February the 7th. Here it is. Parasomnia. It's already a mouthful sometimes. Parasomnia.
Correct. That is
16th
correct.
studio.
Whoa,
16th studio album.
What an album, Mike. What an album. Wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations.
If only it sounded as good as it looks.
No, it
It
sounds
does.
just as good
It
as it
does.
looks. It's just.
Yes, it does.
But
I
first,
kid, I
is
kid.
James okay? James, is he all right? Is he
Yeah,
getting
let's
better?
start with that.
He is okay. We're in Biloxi today, and it looks like the show will go on. So yeah,
Okay,
he's doing
good.
much better. He really was in bad shape yesterday. Couldn't even speak. So unfortunately, we had a situation where we had to pull the plug on the show, which, I don't know if that's ever even happened with us. So yeah, I guess sometimes these things happen, and a singer, singer's voice is the singer's instrument is their voice. And sometimes if you're really sick, he literally couldn't even speak. So it was rough.
Yeah.
But the show will go on
That's-
today in
Good.
Biloxi.
There we go. That's all. Hey, you before leaving, you had said that you were handled a lot of stuff and you were doing artwork and that. Now that you came back, has that the dynamics changed with the band? Is there some stuff I'm glad I'm not handling that anymore.
Yeah, well, things are delegated a lot more now than they were in my first round. Back before 2010, I was pretty much overseeing like everything, and after a while, it started to become a little overwhelming. But yeah, once I left, obviously the band divvied up, the responsibilities and delegated things, and now coming back, it just took a little time to figure out who was going to do what. But yeah, I think we got a real good system, and everybody's like, in a lot more involved than it used to be back in my first time around. So it's definitely more of a band dynamic in that sense.
Mike, what was that moment, the catalyst, that moment, that specific moment when you said, you know what, I'm going back. I want to go back. Like
There wasn't a specific moment. It was a culmination of a lot of smaller moments. I had reconnected with all the guys on a personal level, so we were all in very good places personally. And then I had been, connecting on a musical level with John Petrucci for his solo album and tour, and then along with John and Jordan together to do a third Liquid Tension album. So all these little kind of baby steps kind of led the way, and ultimately, here we are.
No.
And all those times you were working at those other projects, Mike, you were lots of different musicians. Is there anything you learned or you experienced that you brought back when you came back to Dream Theater? You said, hey, maybe we can try it this way.
Well, it kind of goes with what I just said about a lot of the responsibilities being delegated more. I think all those years away, those 13 years, I had done literally dozens of albums with dozens of different bands, and my role in each of those bands were different. Some of them I was a leader. Some of them it was more a collaborative team effort. Then there were some situations like Avenged Sevenfold or Twisted Sister where I was literally just a hired gun. So, I learned how to adapt to different personnels. Each one of those bands had a different kind of chemistry, a different personal energy. And I learned how to be a lot more of a team player through all those experiences.
Did 15 years apart. It's 15 years, I would guess, right? It's about 15, 14 years.
Well, I've been
apart.
back now for a year and a half, so it was 13. But yeah, we're now at the 15-year mark or so since I left.
Did that make the heart fonder, right? You're being apart with these folks, and then suddenly, we're on fire, guys. We are on fire.
Yeah, I mean, absence does make the heart grow fonder. There's no question about it. And I think the time away, I think we really learned to appreciate, you know, how special this chemistry of this lineup is. And, we now feel it now, making the new album and now being on tour, celebrating the band's 40th anniversary. So this lineup is really like the classic lineup. And, we made so many memories through the years together with this lineup and so much music. But yeah, we all are so happy to be back together again.
I mean, I'm loving the album. For myself, it's one of the most straightforward or maybe focused albums of the Dream Theater catalog. I mean, I'd have to go back to train of thought to maybe say that since then. But I mean, yet surprisingly, I'm listening to it. I'm like, wow, look, it's, there's less weave, as Donald Trump might say. And, you're saying, hey, so these are shorter songs. And you go and look, like, I think the shorter song is like 5 minutes besides it just gets that feel that being so focused. The album just seems to fly by. It was at 72 minutes long. It's hard to believe.
Yeah, we actually even wanted to try to cap it at about 60 when we were starting the record. We were trying to be conscious to not go beyond an hour, but once the creative juices are flowing and the ball is rolling, sometimes it's hard to get all those ideas in. And we have a tendency to write long songs. But I don't think they feel long, like you just said. So
Yeah.
I think the album flies by pretty quickly.
That's a good point. A song is great when it's 9 minutes long and you just didn't realize it was 9 minutes long, right?
Yeah.
Or 17 minutes long and you didn't realize it was 17 minutes long. So hats off to you guys. I'll also give you a nod because you're playing Barstool Warrior from the last Dream Theater album. Hats off to you. I mean, how do you feel about playing the material you didn't participate on or write live?
Well, it was important to me for that to be included, believe it or not. I'm the one that writes the set list, and these guys gave me full on freedom when it came to the Mangini era material. And I knew it had to be represented. You can't just brush away 5 albums from these guys' career because I'm back. It would have been pretty selfish and disrespectful. So, yeah, I mean, to me, it wasn't even considered to not be playing that material. And like I said, they gave me the freedom to pick and choose songs that I could relate to and be comfortable with. And I think if you didn't know any differently when you come see the live show, it sits right in the middle of the set very comfortably with everything else that is part of my catalog. But I'm used to playing other drummers' material. I did it with Avenged
But it takes a
Sevenfold.
big man. It takes a big man to sort of, embrace. That's the right word, right? Like Bruce Dickinson and Blaze Bayley. He embraces the years of Blaze Bayley. I think that's wonderful.
They don't. I don't think Bruce ever does Blaze tunes, or very rarely. Yeah. And I know Rob Halford doesn't do Ripper tunes,
well,
and I know and I know David Lee Roth won't do Sammy Hagar tunes. So yeah, not all bands are as open to it.
All right.
If you had to say, what would be the main difference in your drumming styles between yourself and Mike?
He is very methodical. He's very conscious of what all 4 limbs are doing and the way he utilizes his independence. I'm not that kind of a drummer. I've never been a guy that sits there and studies technique and the correct way to hold a stick and, all that kind of stuff. I go on feel. And, to me, I try to make difficult music sound easy. I think he has the tendency to make, something that could be easy sound difficult. And that's I'm not trying to insult him. I'm just, merely observing the difference in styles. And, he's the type that I think would play the same part exactly the same as it is on the album and do it consistently every night. I'm just not that kind of a drummer. I like to fly off the seat of my pants and be in the moment and, do different things just depending on how things are feeling.
Yeah. I noticed that Night Terror and the Shadow Man incident, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I hear a little Rush nod to there. Like maybe in the guitar solos or maybe like a Necromancer kind of vibe at some parts.
Well, there's always Rush in every song Dream Theater has ever written throughout our entire career, dating back 40 years ago to the very first Majesty demos. I mean, Rush was always our biggest collective influence. So yeah, there's no question that stuff comes through. I mean, there's some riffs in the Shadow Man that sound like they could have been off of Hemispheres or Permanent Waves. And yeah, Night Terror's got a whole big kind of 7/8 section, which is very like, natural science-ish. So yeah, I mean, that stuff inevitably comes through no matter what.
And I mean, at this point in your career, we're talking 40 years in. I mean, I try to think of another band that starts an album with an instrumental like you guys did here. I can't come up with any. It's you have that freedom to do what you want. I mean, you've always had it, but what's the value of that for you?
Well, it wasn't always that way. You know, the first 10 years of the band, you know, we had to fight for any kind of leverage and creative control. You know, we were very much at the mercy of the industry and the record company. That's the way it was kind of run in the 90s. So it took many, many years before we were able to get full on creative control and be able to do whatever we wanted, however we wanted. And that began with the success of Scenes from a Memory back in 99. And thank God, knock on wood, ever since then, for the last 25 years or so, Dream Theater has been able to have that kind of creative control, and a big part of it is thankful to the incredible fan base we have that are so supportive and will go out there and, you know, buy the records or buy the concert tickets and come out and support the band. So thank God that they've enabled us that kind of freedom.
Who came up with Parasomnia as the sort of loose concept on the album? Was it you? Or
John Petrucci suggested that right in the very, very first meeting we had about the album. I guess he had come across that term and was holding on to it to present as a bouncing off point. So yeah, that was something he suggested, and it helped kind of give us a jumping off point to make a very, very dark album, because of the subject matter.
I mean, I'm glad there's an epic. I always look forward to the epics on the Dream Theater, and of course, the Shadow Man incident's no exception here. It kind of really encompasses everything that goes on, precedes it, and then you got a nice finish. Talk a little about that track, maybe.
Yeah, it's an epic. We just on the bus last night watched a reaction video to that track. So last night we kind of relived the song, and we hadn't heard the song in a while since we made the record. And we definitely were blown away listening to that particular track, having not heard it in a little while. Yeah, I think the Dream Theater epics always have a little bit of everything of what the band is about. Because when you're writing a long song like that, there are no rules. You take the clock off the wall, you let the song be whatever it wants to be. In the case of this, we had a lot of ideas on the table that hadn't found homes yet on the album. So when you're writing a giant song like this, you could utilize them all. And, get really into like foreshadowing passages or reprising passages. And in the case of this album, we have those kind of musical passages that jump in and out of the songs all throughout the entire album. They're not confined to just their particular songs. So this is a bit of a concept album in that respect. But the Shadow Man incident was a chance to really get it all in there in one song.
What would you tell a fan or someone who listens to music the difference between this album and the past few Dream Theater albums that you were on or you weren't on? Like, what would be the musical difference if there was? How would you describe the musical direction on this album?
Well, I don't think I'm objective enough to be able to compare the albums I'm on with the albums I'm not on. I guess I'll give you an example of what John Petrucci said in the studio. We were listening back to one of the songs, and I was like, man, I just can't put my finger on what makes this band sound the way it does, like when with this lineup. And he says, oh, I could put my finger on it. And he walked over to me and literally put his finger on me. So that's not me patting myself on the back, but that's a funny little story of John giving me that kind of credit, which I appreciate. Look, every lineup is going to have a different chemistry. So, you take any 5 people and you put them in a room to make a record together, and you remove one of them and put a different person in, no matter what, you're going to have a different chemistry. And I learned that the 13 years away from the band, doing all these different bands. Even Neil Morse and I were in 3 different bands together, but each one of those bands were very different because of the personnel involved.
So Mark, my good buddy Mark is a huge Dream Theater fan. I mean, he drives all over to see you guys. He has one question, if you allow me to ask. Musically, these songs on this album sound exactly like classic Dream Theater. Will the next Dream Theater album be different musically or stylistically? Maybe a little heavier or maybe more melodic, like Falling into Infinity? I don't know if you even have that answer at this point.
Oh my God, no. That's the last thing we're thinking of right now. I mean, the album just came out last week, you know?
Yeah,
and we
yeah,
have another year on the road with this tour. So yeah, that's the last thing on our mind at the moment. Who knows?
Well, the good news is you guys are going to be touring all through February, all through March, coming up to Canada, which is amazing, all through the US. Tonight, it seems like the show's back on, right, Mike? With
we're here in Biloxi
James.
and the show is on.
All right, so that pick it up. Here it is. Here it is again.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's one of my favorite Dream Theater albums, I must say.
Oh, thank you.
I did enjoy Mike Mangini's contribution to Dream Theater. I did like his albums, but man, this is back to the, I don't want to say golden era, perhaps. Maybe is that the right thing to say? But pick it up. Definitely a great album, and looking forward to see you guys on tour. And I'm digging that set list you put together. It's got a little bit of everything. Congratulations.
Well, we're having a great time out here. So looking forward to coming up to Canada and seeing you guys.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks very much, Mike, and enjoy the tour.
Thank you, guys.